What's up, guys? Welcome back to another SportUniverse Podcast, number 14. It's me, Brian. I'm by myself for this podcast. I think it's number 4 that I'm by myself, which is totally fine. I'm fine rambling on about sports and the things that I care about in sports, which is what this podcast is going to mainly be about, because, to be honest, the teams that I care about have been the biggest things in sports right now. I'm going to start with baseball and hit some NBA stuff and then get into the NFL. Not for long, just a little. I'm not going to do a controversial topic this week unless I need to, which I don't think I have to, because I've noticed that doing controversial topics by myself is not really necessary since there's no real debate going on. So it'll just be me reacting to things in sports and we'll go from there. So let's get started. So in the baseball, I don't know how to say it, but the hottest team in baseball right now is the Mets. There's no other way to put it. The hottest team in baseball is the Mets. Never thought I'd say that this year. But somehow, ever since they traded for Marcus Stroman and have gotten past the All-Star break, they've been basically unstoppable, and I kind of hate that I'm making this podcast right now because it seems everything I say anywhere in the sport universe, whether it be the website or this, goes the opposite, so I'm hoping that that's different for this. Right now, I kind of just want to stop talking about the Mets because I'm worried that it's going to jinx them, but whatever, it's necessary for the sport universe. So right now, they're beating the Pirates 13-0 or something. If they win today, it'll be 2 games in a row. Their 7-game winning streak was just snapped, but in their last 10 games, they'll cross my finger, will be 9-1 unless they lose their 13-run lead. But everything that the Mets have been doing has been going the right way, which is really odd. They traded for Marcus Stroman, which was it made no sense to anyone because it seemed like the Mets were completely out of it. And once they trade for him, they go on this 7-game winning streak or whatever. It might have been 6 games, something like that. And now it just, trading for Marcus Stroman totally makes sense because they're actually in the race now, which is so hard to believe. I think if everything goes right today, they'll be 3 games back of a wild card spot. 6 games back of, 10 games back of NL East, but I don't think anyone's really thinking about that right now. My first goals is for them to be over 500 and then start focusing on the getting a wild card spot and everything after that. They have probably the most dominant pitching staff on paper. Like I said, I've talked about a lot why I don't like putting your team around pitching. I think you need both sides to be very good, which the Mets have the opportunity to do if their pitching would just be better. If their hitting would just be better, which I'm not saying it's not doing well, but it could be doing a lot better. And Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Steven Matz, Zach Wheeler, all pitchers that could be 1 or 2. Their top 3 pitchers are definitely ones on any team, and the last 2 could be 2 or 3 on other teams. But that's where their whole rotation is. So they're stacked up to, if they make it to the playoffs, to have a very successful playoff run if they can make it in. If they get hot, it's all about getting hot at the right time, and getting hot going into the playoffs would be what they need to do. Now, that's what the problem is, getting into the playoffs. They still have room to make up, and they'll probably if they make it into the playoffs, it'll be as a wild card team, and they have to win that first game to get into the actual playoffs, which we saw in 2016. They lost to the Giants, but it would be amazing to see playoff baseball again. 2015 when they were in the playoffs was one of my favorite times that I've been alive for. I mean, every single day, every other day was so much fun because I knew the Mets were playing a playoff game. It was just something to look forward to every single night. And that whole run, I remember the whole run making it to the playoffs, how excited everyone was. It was just awesome to listen to sports radio, read about the Mets on Mets blog. All the positivity around the Mets during that time was awesome. And if that could happen again, that would be an amazing feeling as a Mets fan, as a sports fan. And it would just be something that I've been craving for 3 years now, getting back to where they were. I'm not going to go into next season, but there are some interesting parallels because coming up they have 3-game series against the Nationals in Citi Field, which is similar to 2015 when they swept the Nationals, and that's when everything started. And they have the opportunity to do that again this year. Obviously, the Nationals aren't in first place, but they're above them in the division, in the wild card. So that would be interesting to see. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it's just really fun to have positive things to say about the Mets. I mean, it's been a common theme throughout this podcast, these 14 weeks that we've been doing it, how bad the Mets are. And this is the first time I get to come on and say the Mets are the best team in baseball. At the moment. Best team, not really. But the Mets are the hottest team in baseball right now. And to say that is just so crazy. Some of the better players that have been this week, J.D. Davis is not crushing the ball, just hitting the ball. I mean, he's batting .294 this season, 10 home runs, 30 RBIs, definitely more than anyone expected from J.D. Davis. I mean, when they traded for him, I was like, who is this J.D. Davis guy and why did they waste prospects on getting him? I mean, they weren't great prospects, but why did they waste prospects on getting J.D. Davis, who was in the minors because he had a chance and did bad in the majors? Why was this the guy they were focusing on? And to be honest, he's been really good, and I'm happy he's on the Mets, and if he continues to be good, he could be part of their young core. I mean, he's only 26. I think Jeff McNeil's 26 too. I'll look it up right now. Let's see. 27. Jeff McNeil's 27. So J.D. Davis is younger than Jeff McNeil. If he can be just an everyday player, that'd be great. Amazing. Something I would not have expected when the season started. Who else? Jeff McNeil continues to do really well. Pete Alonso's in a little bit of a slump, but still is having impact for the Mets. Ahmed Rosario has been fantastic recently, has had a really good season. Fantastic right now because he's hitting the ball like he's been for most of the season, but he's playing really good defense. Something that he wasn't doing in the beginning of the season. And it's just exciting to actually watch Mets baseball. I mean, to be honest, during this season, I've watched probably as little Mets baseball as I have ever watched because it just didn't interest me because they were just so bad and were nothing special. I mean, they were supposed to be really good this season and have just been nothing. But now that they're actually showing some signs of being really good, it's fun to watch. And it's fun to listen to sports radio again. It's fun to read about the Mets. And for me, it's hard just to not talk about them. I mean, this whole podcast is basically going to be about the Mets just because I want to talk about them. And it's just an amazing feeling. Let me get into a different topic. So, a different topic, a different sport. In the NBA this week, there was an interview with Stephen A. Smith and Carmelo Anthony, which was a really big interview. It was on, I don't know how it fit into First Take. It might have been a First Take episode. I just watched it all on YouTube. I don't really watch First Take. And there are some key points that I want to go over in that interview. One of the big things was one of the big reasons that he had this interview, I mean, Stephen A. Smith basically questioned him as to if this was an interview begging for him to get back into the NBA. And Carmelo Anthony explained that that's definitely not what it is. He made this interview and he wanted to do this interview because it got to the point that the media and everyone else was talking about who he was as a person, as a player, on and off the court, that it had gotten way too much and he needed to say who he was and where he's at in his life, in his training, everything like that for himself and not have anyone else talk about him, talk for him. And so it was basically very important because he was able to show who he was as a person. His key point in it was that he's ready to play. He's just ready to play basketball. He doesn't care if it's for a winning team. He doesn't care what his role is. He's accepted he's a bench player at this point. He's accepted it. He said that he's a changed person. That going from Knicks to the Thunder to the Rockets was a big self-confidence hit for him. I mean, he went from being the star in New York, averaging 25, 30 a night, being the focus of a whole city, to going to OKC and being like third or fourth option. Then he went to the Rockets, and his role went all the way to a bench player. Big hits for a player like Carmelo Anthony to take. And he went in saying that it was a hard time for him, and that's why he stepped away from basketball for a little. However, when he stepped away, it let the media spiral this whole story out of control and make him come off as this selfish, basically, bleep hole of a player. And that's why I had the interview. He explained that, which was news to me, that in Houston, it was never really asked of him to be a bench player. They never really were like, here's why you need to be a bench player, and that's why. He didn't understand why he became a bench player, which is why he struggled with it. They never explained to him that it was best for the team. And he said that if they explained to him the right way that it was best for the team, he would have, by all means, become a bench player and been fine with it. But because it wasn't explained to him right, they never really came outright and said it to him. He couldn't accept the role, and he couldn't help the Rockets the way that they needed him to help, which is something to think about. I mean, it's not Carmelo. If we can trust what Carmelo Anthony is saying, it's not his fault. It's how the Rockets approach the situation. And, I mean, he had some very interesting quotes. I'm trying to get my piece of paper that I wrote about it. The second thing that kind of fits into what I was saying, he said, "You mean to tell me that there are 30 teams in the NBA and I can't make a 15-man roster?" And so basically what he's saying is, how is it possible that he's Carmelo Anthony, a future Hall of Famer, great scorer, best scorer probably ever, possibly ever, he can't make a 15-man roster in the NBA where there's 30 times 15, I think, is 450. Let me just check. Yeah, 450. He's not one of the 450 best players in the NBA. That's kind of hard for me to believe. That's kind of hard for him to believe. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, which is what he was getting at. And from that point, he basically said that it's because of how the media portrayed his story, portrayed who he was as a person. That's led to him not getting enough job chances, not getting enough chances to actually play basketball again, the sport that he loves. And that's one of the things that he realized when he took his time off, that he didn't care about winning anymore. He didn't care about being the best player on the team, scoring all of it. He just wanted to play basketball again, and he didn't care in what type of way he did, which is basically what he was trying to say in the interview. He also said that my silence is not my surrender. These past 2 years, he's basically stepped all the way away from basketball. I mean, I think this is the first time he's actually commented or been in the public eye regarding basketball in a long time, maybe even in the past 2 years. And it just goes to show that he'd gotten to this point where the media's taken him and who he is as a person out of control and made it almost impossible for him to get a job to play basketball again. and that's all he really wants to do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else of importance. Obviously, there was a lot of other stuff where he just talked about how he played in New York, what his situation in New York was. Don't think that's really important. They did talk about why him as a basketball player hasn't had the same success as his players that he came up with, like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul. And he explained that he always wanted to do it on his own, and that was a big thing for him. Obviously, that he didn't know where the NBA was going when he went. He didn't know what the NBA was going to be like after the lockout when he went to the Knicks, things like that. And his counterparts like Dwayne Wade and LeBron James knew what was coming and knew that super teams were going to be the new thing. But Carmelo Anthony always wanted to do it alone. He always wanted to do it alone, and he always had loyalty to New York. And he explained that before he signed that big deal with the Knicks, he was going to Chicago. He gave the Knicks one last opportunity to try and persuade him by giving the Knicks his last interview, and they did persuade him. They told him they offered him false promises, things that never actually happened, but things that they said would happen, bringing in other superstars and things like that. He didn't go into specifics, but that's what he said, and it's nice you gotta respect Carmelo Anthony for the loyalty that he did have. You gotta respect him for wanting to win in New York, and we've seen time and time again that players just haven't really wanted to play in New York, haven't really wanted to build the Knicks back up to where they've been, and you have to respect that from him. And I kind of have a soft spot for Carmelo Anthony, being a Knicks fan, and never really understanding why everyone just seemed to hate on him. He was just a player that didn't get the pieces around him that he needed to succeed. And the pieces that he did get were old, injured, and not anything close to what they needed to for the Knicks to win a championship or get far into the playoffs. I think that's all regarding Carmelo Anthony in the interview. Obviously, there's a lot more you can watch for yourself. It was First Take on ESPN. You can go on YouTube, watch it. Now for the NFL, news today broke that the Patriots and Tom Brady signed a 2-year extension. I think it's each year $23 million. So they signed through 2021. So I guess that means he's playing 2 more seasons at least. Great. Love that. Totally being sarcastic. So annoyed. Obviously, I guess thinking about it, I didn't think that he was going to retire after this season. But obviously the Patriots haven't seen anything wrong with how he's playing and things like that. So he's still really good, really impressive as a quarterback, and there's not much to say. Tom Brady is going to be with the Patriots for 2 more seasons. I don't really have any other reactions to that. Obviously, the Jets are going to have to face him for 2 more seasons, things like that. But I kind of knew that was going to happen. I think I'm going to end it there. This is probably one of the shorter podcasts. There's not much to really say regarding everything else. Hopefully the Mets keep winning. Hopefully Carmelo Anthony finds a job. Hopefully Tom Brady sucks next year. The Jets can do really good. I guess I'll end it there. Thanks for listening. Keep reading the articles on SportUniverse.com, TheSportUniverse.com. I have to figure out a posting schedule for that because, in all honesty, I've been really focused on YouTube and building that up. I need to go back and focus on the website again. It's just writing articles isn't my favorite thing to do, but I'll get back on that. Instagram, we're still trying to figure out how to make our page different than other people's because there's a lot of sports news pages and things like that. Keep watching our YouTube videos. Keep subscribing. We're at 49 subscribers at the time I'm recording this. We were at 50, but someone unsubscribed. Don't know why. Please subscribe again. Our Kevin Durant video is at 3,800. 3,800. I posted a No Syndergaard video on Friday. Thought they would do better than what it's doing right now. It has like 10 views, and I posted it on Friday. So please go watch that. Please subscribe. Blah, blah, blah. If you want to help us in any way, editing or writing for us, everything's basically volunteer work. I'm not making any money from this. No one is making any money from this at the point that we're at right now. Hopefully someday we do. But everything's volunteer basically right now. So if you want to help build this, contact us at TheSportUniverse 2019 at gmail.com. And thanks for listening.